Remember, real American heroes don't do drugs. Don't!
During its initial 12-year run in the action figure market, G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero had many sub-teams within our main hero and enemy factions. Many fans will have their own favorites, be it the heroic Tiger Force, Night Force, or villainous branches such as the Dreadnoks or Python Patrol. As the 1990s rolled around, we'd see G.I. Joe venture off into uncharted territory, utilizing and exploring themes ranging from the environmental-based eco-warriors to the hand-to-hand combat specialized Ninja Force to full-on cosmic-level conflicts with the Star Brigade. Now, amongst the lesser discussed sub-teams in G.I. Joe lore would be the D.E.F, or Drug Elimination Force, and their drug-based enemies, namely the Headman and his army builder, i.e. his Headhunter narcotics guards. At this point, it's worth looking at some unused, unreleased concepts that would have potentially bore the D.E.F branding, but were also quite different from the D.E.F that we did get. I'll tell you about it in a second, so we'll take a closer look. Let's begin. Okay, so if I looked a little confused there, it's because I needed a moment to, well, collect my thoughts a little bit since there's a few interesting tidbits of information when it comes to this particular topic. Because this is the D.E.F that you know, but it's also not the D.E.F that you know. But first, before we get into that, some backstory. With the war on drugs being such a key issue in the 1990s, it's probably no surprise that G.I. Joe produced items relating to this as part of their messaging to young children during this era. The D.E.F sub-branding that we would get for G.I. Joe in 1992 would include Cutter returning to the lineup after his inclusion as the operator of the 1984 Killer Whale hovercraft, Mutt along with his K9 Junkyard, who's also returning after his 1984 initial appearance. Shockwave coming back again after both his version 1 release of 1988 along with his subsequent Night Force sub-team release, and then we also have Bulletproof, the leader of the D.E.F faction. On the villain side, there was the Headman, who was the drug kingpin that had something of a gruesome death during his early 1990s DEEK cartoon series appearance, and we also had the Headhunters, who were the Headman's well-paid, well-compensated bodyguards. But before the Drug Elimination Force would come to be, some early concepts in 1991 would see what appeared to be an unrelated version of the D.E.F. Dan Klingensmith's Creating G.I. Joe Volume 14 book shows these early ideas that would have formed the D.E.F. And in fact, this D.E.F, as far as the text within the pages show, doesn't make any direct reference to the drug elimination theme. If you have a look at the words in the text, the Drug Elimination Force does not show up at all in word form in any of these two pages, nor does the logo. See how the lettering for the D.E.F here looks different rather than the one that we would get as part of the 1992 final offering. Whether they would have used the drug concept at all as far as these 4 characters you see on these pages goes remains a mystery. Reading the text, it seems like an initial idea for the D.E.F was to use each of the 4 figures shown to be packaged with reuses of the 1988 motorized vehicle packs. The text states that the idea here was to bring back and reuse an underutilized concept from G.I. Joe's past. At first, I thought this was in reference to the underuse of the D.E.F as a faction, but seeing as the ideas shown here were from 1991 and the official D.E.F that we did get wouldn't debut into G.I. Joe's toy line until 1992, it seems that the underutilized concept here refers to the 1988 motorized vehicle packs. I clarified this later on in a conversation with Dan Klingensmith, who added that the D.E.F scene here was effectively just a working title and not the same as the D.E.F that we did eventually get. Thus, shown here are the following characters in revised colors. Windchill, who had been previously used as the Arctic Blast driver from 1989. Windmill, who previously was the Skystorm X-Wing chopper pilot of 1988. And then we have 2 villains, namely Sea Slug, who initially was the navigator that was packed in with the Cobra Sea Ray of 1987, and then we have a recolor of the AVAC, who was initially packaged with the Fire Bat as part of the very large Cobra Terror Drome offering of 1986. The figure designs utilize existing molds from famous G.I. Joe designers Ron Rudat and Mark Pennington of prior years, with updates by Kurt Groen. And while these would never come to be, a former Hasbro hand painter, Grace Garcia, would use a Pantone book and some spec sheets on existing versions of these characters to show what the D.E.F. releases would have looked like. Grace notably did the same with the unproduced Night Force figures that also did not make it into market, as covered in a separate Toy Connections video segment. With regards to the motorized vehicle packs, we do see artwork of Windchill riding what presumably would be a revised version of the small ATV pack from 1988, and we also see the Sea Slug with the Scuba pack, also from the motorized single pack offerings of 1988. It's a mystery what other motorized vehicle pack redecos we would have gotten had these concepts come into fruition, but the idea here was to help sell the motorized packs by including them with some figures, ultimately to sell the idea of a character to be sold with a small vehicle of sorts. That said, the text here indicates that the idea proved to be too expensive relative to market conditions, and as such, these did not proceed forward. Now, had these hit the market, the plan would have been to get them shipped by March of 1993, which actually would have been the calendar year following the 1992 D.E.F. that we did ultimately get. Though the final D.E.F. would get some light-up weapons instead of the motorized packs that were intended. And like any working concept or title, yes, it would have been nice to see these added to the D.E.F. ranks, but had these come to be, perhaps we would never have gotten the D.E.F. that we did get. Or one can always speculate that these could have been reworked and added to the eventual D.E.F. sub-team later on, had G.I. Joe continued on and on without cancellation in 1994. It's also a wonder if we would have seen the characters keep their existing names, or if they would have been reworked into new characters. Presumably, the figures themselves would have maintained their existing factions, given that we see the AVAC still with the Cobra logo on his parachute, and the Sea Slug does sport the Scuba pack with the Cobra logo on the arts. Windmill does appear next to the Cobra figures on this page, but I'll speculate for myself that he'd have remained a Joe, seeing as his body isn't hovered over the Cobra logo like the Sea Slug and AVAC are, and Windchill's primarily army green color indicates that he probably would have remained as a Joe as well. That said, the Scuba pack itself is a deviation, given that the motorized pack of 88 was a G.I. Joe heroic item, but how these things could or would have evolved from here, we'll never really know. All we have are these unused, unproduced ideas to go by, and that's good enough for discussion purposes here. As such, this glimpse into the fun topic of unmade figures can continue to give us an alternate offering that we could have gotten if some decisions had been made differently, or had market conditions made sense for these to be released at the time. Either way, it's a fun look-see into the never-ending topic of G.I. Joe's rich toy history. Anyway, if you happen to like this video, don't go anywhere just yet. I'm going to put another Unproduced Toys video that you can click on right over here, or to choose your own toy history topic from an existing playlist, you can click on that playlist right over here. Otherwise, yo Joe, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching, and take care.